Do carbs cause autoimmune disease? There has been much controversy and debate over this topic, but there is some research to it. I'm Dr. Banasali. Let's talk about it. We know that carbohydrates are associated with inflammation, but it may be the type of carbs that you eat, which will matter most. A bowl of bean chili or a large French fries from McDonald's. They're both carbs. Why does it make such a difference as to how your body responds to them? It does. Let's take a 2005 study that was published in the AMA. They followed 64 women. They were postmenopausal and they had tried so many different diets and were unable to lose weight. They tried the South Beach diet, the Atkins diet, Jenny Craig. They tried a low-carb diet and Nutrisystem as well, but they were unable to lose much weight. Then they were recruited for this study. They were divided into two groups. The vegan group, it was given an all-vegan diet, or the other group that was a standard diet, but it was low cholesterol. It was called the National Cholesterol Education Diet. And they found that between the two groups, which group ate more carbs? It was the vegan group. They were encouraged to eat rice, sweet potato, pasta, root vegetables, and yet they lost weight. How much weight did they lose? About 1 pound a week. And they were followed for 2 years after the study. Weight stayed off. The study was about 14 weeks itself. They also showed that the metabolism was improved in these women and the calorie burning speed went up. And yet it was a high carb diet in comparison to the other one. How did they end up losing weight? In short answer, carbs are not necessarily going to trigger autoimmune disease because you can eat a lot of healthy carbs. However, if you're eating the wrong carbs and they're high fat carbs, for example, if you have a bowl of chili, that itself is not going to be very inflammatory. However, if you're adding on a ton of sour cream, a ton of cheese on top of that, now you're adding all these other fats that may be more inflammatory, and that's where you could run into trouble. Our body does need carbs. They are a good energy source and a natural source of fiber. So we want to have more carbs, but we've got to have the right kind of carbs because we also want the ones that have a better glycemic index, how quickly a food increases the blood sugar. So that does make a difference. If you think about it, a slice of white bread versus a slice of whole wheat bread. We all know intuitively that the slice of whole wheat bread is better. It's going to take longer to break it down, better glycemic index. Let's take a donut, for example. That is high sugar and it's refined sugar. It's not the right type that we want. So what's going to happen when you eat that donut? Your blood sugar is going to spike. It's going to go up and it's going to go up sooner than it would have with something that was really whole wheat. Now, both of those examples can cause an increase in blood sugar, but the donut is going to probably spike it a little bit higher and a little bit faster. And that spike in blood sugar is what's considered the primary driver of inflammation. And if you eat too many refined carbs, that's going to lead to increase in weight, which most people don't seem to want because fat is also inflammatory. So what can increase inflammation in your body? Yes, carbs can increase them, but also, like I said, the right type of carbs can help you out. Take edamame. Edamame does have carbs, but it also has very healthy compounds in it that can give you more antioxidant properties. They're packed with fiber, protein, potassium, and yes, they can affect your glucose, but the blood sugar spike should be less than other carb sources. It also has something called isoflavones, which target inflammatory molecules in the body. Sweet potatoes are definitely carb loaded, but they're a good starch and can be part of an anti-inflammatory diet. Let's take pizza. Who doesn't love a good pizza? Tomato sauce might be fine, except for people that can't handle that. But the cheese on top of it and the oil with the all-white-purpose flour crust. Maybe you just need to change that pizza up a little bit. Thinner flatbread, so it's less carb heavy, but also I've sprinkled some chickpeas on it along with some cheese. There is some cheese on it, but it's more of an aged cheese, which tends to be healthier for you. And you can try that as a pizza. So don't necessarily give up your favorite foods. Sometimes you might have to, but you could also change your favorite foods into something that's a little bit healthier. For example, spaghetti. So spaghetti is a great food. Pasta, kids love it, adults love it. It goes well with a lot of things. But if you could possibly do the newer types of pasta that are perhaps with legumes, that might be better. Now, not everybody likes the green lentil or red lentil pasta. I realize that. But if you can't do those, then consider switching to whole wheat spaghetti instead of having the all-purpose flour one or the usual spaghetti. There is a small change you can do right there. When you make noodles, I make them pretty frequently. When you make a noodle recipe, yes, include the noodles in it. But if you load it up with veggies in it as well, Overall, it's harder to notice when there is more veggies and less noodles as a ratio than it is to just give somebody a plate of vegetables. So there is ways you can go about it to make it a little bit tastier. If you have that big chocolate chip muffin in front of you, take a step back. It can be awfully tasty, but probably not the right kind of carbs that you want if you're trying to avoid inflammation. Instead, go for a small square of dark chocolate. It tends to be healthier than that chocolate chip muffin. There are different options you can make if you want to try to prevent increased inflammation. In answer to the question, do carbs increase your risk of autoimmune disease? Well, there's so many risks that go into autoimmune disease, whether it's genetic, whether it's infections that caused it, or whether it's your environment from something called epigenetics, which are the causes that we might be able to control that influences autoimmune disease. One of them is diet. What if you're vegan, athletic, clean living, practicing mindfulness, meditation, and you still get an autoimmune disease? Please do not blame yourself. You cannot control all of these factors. The problem is we don't know how yet to prevent autoimmune disease. But one of the very few things that we could control is environmental risk. And so hopefully, if we can help with this one risk factor, maybe we're able to prevent autoimmune disease if that's what it took to trigger this person's autoimmune disease, because there's so many factors. But if it's genetics and it's strongly genetic, it may happen anyway. Although the healthier you are when you get an autoimmune disease, hopefully that good health is able to fight it even better. Nutritional immunology is a pretty new science. It would be really good to have studies like this that could compare different diets and the risk of autoimmune disease. And these studies are coming, they're smaller. But until then, we have to take care of ourselves the best we know how. We know that a lot of these fried and refined foods that we get outside have more omega-6 in them. And our preference, our body's preference, in order to stay healthy is more omega-3 foods. So we do have to think about the ratios between our foods and which ones have worse actors in them and which ones have better ones. And because of that, you do need to make food choices and hopefully reduce the risk of inflammation overall. Foods that tend to be considered more inflammatory are the sugar-sweetened beverages like soda, refined meats like hot dogs, processed foods or ultra-processed foods. If you can't understand that label, chances are it's a processed food. Fatty fried foods. These are also considered more pro-inflammatory. Alcohol, refined carbohydrates, this is also on that list, and even deep fried foods. So if you really want French fries, yes, you can cut them up and sprinkle on some olive oil and salt and pepper and put them in an air fryer or bake them in an oven. You don't have to deep fry everything. And if you do, it might still be better if you do it versus somebody in a fast food restaurant does it because you don't know what kind of oil they used. Better to avoid ultra-processed foods and even processed foods to a degree. Better to make your own if you can, or at least look for proper ingredients, read labels. And overall, stay healthy, eat less, eat more plants, and move. Until next time, we'll meet again.